The room hummed with expensive silence, the kind that came from men convinced they already owned the future. Fluorescent light slid over polished mahogany and a ring of immaculate suits. Maya Brooks sat alone at the head of the table, spine straight, a single folder of projections in front of her. 11 pairs of eyes watched her not like a leader, but like an intruder who'd stumbled into the wrong room. "Impressive numbers," said the man at the far end. His smile didn't touch his eyes. "For a diversity project." The word diversity cracked like a whip. A few of the men chuckled, low and knowing. She inhaled, the air sharp and cold in her chest. She'd pitched to tougher rooms, but never one this rehearsed in its contempt. Her PowerPoint still glowed behind her. It didn't matter. They'd decided before she opened her mouth. The oldest investor leaned back, gold cufflinks catching the light. "Sweetheart, this isn't charity," he said, soft, venom wrapped in velvet. The laugh that followed wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. It was the kind of laugh designed to tell her, "You don't belong here." Something inside her went rigid, not broken, tempered. Maya closed the folder slowly, hands steady, heartbeat a steady drum in her ears. "I'm not here for charity," she said, voice cutting through the room like glass. "I'm here for ownership." For a brief second, the laughter faltered. Then one of them leaned forward. "Ownership." His smirk widened. "Not in this building." Outside, thunder rolled through the city like a warning. She stood. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't need to. When she walked out of that boardroom, none of them knew they'd just mocked the woman who would dismantle them piece by piece. Rain slid down the high-rise windows like thin glass veins. The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Easton Capital looked as sterile as the men sitting inside it. 11 investors. 11 gray suits. One woman in a black blazer. Maya Brooks placed her laptop on the table with the precision of someone who'd learned early that mistakes would be remembered more than triumphs. "Ms. Brooks," one of them said, without looking up from his phone. "You've got 15 minutes, her pulse ticked steady. She'd built this company from a studio apartment, coding until her fingers cramped. This wasn't charity she was asking for. It was scale. "Thank you," she replied, voice even. The lights dimmed. Her slides lit the walls with graphs, data sets, hard results. Everything this room claimed to respect. As she spoke, their expressions barely moved. One man shifted, checked his Rolex. Another leaned back like he was watching a comedy show. Her numbers were immaculate. Their attention wasn't. "Your technology's impressive," the silver-haired chairman finally said. His tone had a softness too deliberate. "But these markets move fast. We need experienced leadership. Someone who can steer this ship." She knew the shape of the words he wouldn't say. She'd heard them her entire career, just not always this polished. "You mean someone who doesn't look like me?" she said quietly. The room stilled. The older man didn't flinch. "I mean someone with a proven track record. I've tripled revenue in 2 years." He smiled, small and smug. "And yet here you are asking us for help. Laughter controlled, designed." Maya didn't blink. "Capital isn't charity," she said. "It's leverage. I don't need help. I'm offering profit." "That's cute," one of the younger investors said. His jawline was sharp, his smirk sharper. "But we're not in the business of diversity pitches." Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. "You're in the business of making money. And you're in the wrong room," he shot back. The chairman raised a hand like a judge quieting a courtroom. "Let's not get emotional here." "Emotional?" she repeated. Her voice wasn't raised, but the words sliced. "I'm the only one here with a product that works, brilliance." Then another soft laugh, that same expensive, dismissive sound. They didn't even try to hide it. Her team wasn't here. She'd made that decision. She'd wanted to look these men in the eyes alone. Now she saw what they saw. Not a CEO, not a founder, not a visionary. A woman, a black woman. An inconvenience. She closed the laptop. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. The chairman leaned forward. "Look, sweetheart," she raised her eyes. "Don't." That single word stopped him. Not for long. "But enough. This was fun," the younger man said. "Good luck with whatever it is." She didn't reply. She walked out. Down the elevator. Past the lobby. Out into the storm. The night wrapped around her like steel. The sound of their laughter lingered. Not as noise, but as a brand burned deep. She didn't break. She built. And they would regret ever laughing. The leaked audio arrived as a single file. No subject line. No sender name. Just a black email box at 2:13 a.m. Maya stared at the notification on her laptop in the dim light of her apartment. Outside, New York's skyline blinked like a tired giant. Her hands hovered over the mouse. She already knew it wasn't good news. Nothing good came that late. She clicked. Static cracked through her speakers. Then, she actually thought we'd fund that thing? Yeah, I almost felt bad when she got serious about ownership. Laughter. She's smart. But that face at the head of a billion-dollar company? Not happening. We're not running a charity. Let her build a startup in the hood or something. The laughter that followed wasn't forced. It was practiced, a rhythm, a language they spoke fluently. Maya froze. She recognized each voice. The chairman's smooth baritone. The younger man's arrogance. But the third one sliced deeper. It belonged to Robert Lang, her mentor. The man who'd once told her she was too sharp to be ignored. He'd introduced her to this board. He'd walked her into that room. And now he was laughing with them. Her fingers clenched into a fist so tight the knuckles ached. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. She hit pause, then rewind, then play again. Not because she needed to hear it twice, but because some betrayals had to scar deep to be real. She's a good face for a press piece, though, Robert's voice said. Media eats that representation crap up. Her breath trembled. Not from shock and from confirmation. A knock on the office door broke the silence. Maya? Janelle stepped in, her project manager and oldest friend. No makeup. Hoodie. She'd clearly come running after seeing the email alert on their secure channel. Behind her, Malik and Priya followed, faces grim. You heard it, Janelle said, voice low. Maya nodded. She didn't trust herself to speak yet. Malik broke the silence. This is war. No, Maya said finally. Her voice was steady. Too steady. This is who they are. Priya sat across from her. We can expose them. We can, but no press, Maya cut in. Not yet. Her team exchanged looks. They'd seen her angry before. This wasn't that. This was colder, sharper. Janelle leaned forward. They don't get to bury you, Maya. They won't, she said. But we don't play their game. We build our own. The screensaver blinked on, reflecting her face in the dark, eyes hard, jaw locked. She saw not the woman they laughed at, but the one they'd underestimated. Janelle's voice softened. You trusted Robert. I trusted power to have a conscience, Maya said. That was my mistake. Malik ran a hand over his head. Then we hit them where they breathe, money. Priya opened her laptop. We can pull every contact we've ever built. Independent funding. Underrepresented founders. Smaller pools but real allies, Janelle smirked faintly. Build without them. Bleed them dry. Maya stood. The rain from last night still clung to the streets outside. She stared out the window at the towers where they laughed. Her silence was not weakness. It was calculation. Fine, she said. If they won't open the door, we build another building, Janelle finished. Her phone buzzed then. Unknown number. A text. I work inside Easton. I have something you'll want. Don't trust Robert. Midnight, Pier 37. Maya stared at it. No name, no guarantee. But the air in her chest shifted. A small, precise click. The sound of the first piece falling into place. She looked back at her team. Midnight, she said. We're not waiting anymore. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The storm had already begun. Some battles are declared with banners and speeches. Others begin with a whisper in the dark and a file that changes everything. The wind off the river was cold enough to bite. Maya stood beneath the shadow of Pier 37's rusted cranes, breath fogging in the night air. The pier smelled of salt, diesel, and secrets. A figure approached through the dark, a woman in a trench coat, hood up. No hesitation. No greeting. Just a flash of a phone screen with a single sentence. I know what they did. Talk, Maya said. The woman's voice was quiet but sharp. I work in Easton's compliance department. I've seen their internal memos. They were never going to fund you. Your pitch was a performance piece for them, a PR alibi. They wanted your name on their next annual report. Look at us. We gave her a seat. Maya's jaw tightened. They laughed before or after writing that? Both. The woman handed over a small encrypted drive. This is the start. Funding deals. Closed-door calls. The kind of proof they don't expect anyone like you to get. Maya took the drive without flinching. Why are you helping me? They used me too, the woman said simply. Different battlefield, same war. She melted back into the night, leaving nothing but the sound of distant traffic and Maya's heartbeat pounding like a drum against cold concrete. By morning, the war room wasn't a boardroom. It was her office kitchen. Half-empty mugs, messy whiteboard, the heartbeat of something real. Janelle sprawled on a chair with 3 screens open. Malik leaned against the counter, eyes bloodshot from no sleep. Priya scribbled names on sticky notes. This is the list, Janelle said. Black-owned manufacturing startups, small tech firms, women-led logistics companies. They don't have Easton's money, but they have vision, and they've been ignored just like us. Malik clicked the drive open on a secure terminal, and this is their arrogance laid bare. Internal memos, emails, investor call transcripts. They talk like they're gods. Maya stared at the scrolling text. Every line felt like a match on dry wood. Minority optics. Keeps the press calm. Not CEO material, but useful for headlines. She'll take whatever scraps we give. She didn't blink. We're not asking for scraps. Priya's fingers tapped nervously on the table. You really want to build without them? They built walls, Maya said. I build bridges. Janelle leaned forward. And if those bridges don't hold? Maya met her gaze. Then we burn the walls down. Silence. Then Malik grinned. All right then. The first meeting was with Charles Dean, founder of a small but agile cybersecurity firm out of Atlanta. The conference room was modest. No mahogany, no glass walls, just a long table and a few chairs. Charles was in his late 40s, thick beard, eyes like someone who'd fought his way through too many locked doors. You know what they call us? Charles said, voice flat. Good faces for the brochure. That's what they said when I pitched at Easton 3 years ago. Maya didn't flinch. I'm not here for their brochure. Then why are you here? Because I don't need them, she said. And neither do you. His laugh was low, not mocking, recognizing. And what exactly are you offering? Leverage, Maya said. A network of companies like yours. Resource pooling. Revenue sharing. Strategic growth without gatekeepers. We build something they can't buy. He studied her. Not as a charity case. Not as a prop, as an equal. This could fail. Yes, she said. But at least it'll fail on our terms. That honesty was what did it. He extended his hand. Then let's make them watch. Over the next week, the meetings stacked like dominoes. A small biotech firm in Detroit. A logistics startup run by 2 sisters in Dallas. A manufacturing co-op in Newark. Each conversation had the same rhythm. Years of quiet frustration meeting years of restrained fury. They told me I wasn't scalable. They said my product was too niche. They said we weren't the image they wanted. Maya didn't promise miracles. She promised war. And for the first time, they weren't fighting alone. Back in her office, Priya mapped the network on the whiteboard. Red circles for allies, blue lines for potential contracts. The shape forming wasn't a company. It was a counterweight. Janelle crossed her arms. We've got 14 companies willing to join forces. That's insane. It's necessary, Maya said. She looked at the lines like a general studying a battlefield. Easton won't see it coming. Malik leaned over the board. And when they do? She turned to him. We'll already be too big to ignore. At night, alone in her apartment, she played the audio again. Robert's laugh. The investor's words. Not to wallow, to remember. Every empire starts with a wound. Every rebellion starts with a name spoken in a room that said no. Maya Brooks. She whispered it like steel. The underdog strategy wasn't about taking scraps. It was about building something so strong that the gate itself cracked under its own weight. And when it did, no one in that glass tower would ever laugh the same way again. The headline hit the news feeds at 6:47 a.m. Startup founder under investigation for leadership misconduct. No byline, no source, but Maya recognized the fingerprints. Easton Capital didn't just fight with money. They fought with stories. She read the article twice. Words carved with surgical precision. Unconfirmed reports suggest Brooks struggles with unstable leadership behavior. Several investors expressed concerns about her aggressive communication style. Sources say she has alienated key partners. Every line was a mirror held up to their racism, repackaged as fact. By 7:10, her phone exploded. Journalists, investors, allies. By 7:15, hashtags bloomed like weeds. Maya Brooks leadership crisis, unfit CEO. By 7:20, the first death threat slid into her DMs. Janelle stormed into the office, laptop under her arm, face carved in fury. They didn't waste a second. They planned this, Maya said flatly. Malik dropped his backpack on the table. The bots are automated. Half of these accounts were made yesterday. Priya turned the monitor. And they've got your old photo on every thread. You know, the one from that diversity panel? They're framing you as a token who snapped. Maya's throat was dry, but her voice was steady. Then they want fear. Let's give them silence. Janelle slammed her palm on the desk. We can't let them define the story. We don't. Maya leaned back in her chair. We dismantle theirs. 3 hours later, they sat in a small windowless room, not a glossy press conference. Just her team, and a single journalist known for shredding corporate lies. Amira Khan. She didn't bother with polite smiles. She set the recorder on the table like a knife. They're coming for your credibility, Amira said. I don't do puff pieces. If you're lying, I'll bury you myself. Good, Maya said. That's why I called you. Amira's dark eyes held no pity. You've built a company with no institutional support. You're black. You're a woman. They'll use every coded word they can. Maya folded her hands. Then let's translate. Amira hit record. Let's start, Maya said. When they say unstable, they mean I don't bow my head. When they say unfit, they mean I don't wait for permission. When they say aggressive, they mean I remind them I'm not disposable. Amira didn't interrupt. She didn't nod. She just let the silence stretch, long enough for the words to settle like shrapnel. Maya continued, voice low but sharp. They're not afraid of me failing. They're afraid of me succeeding without them. Amira finally spoke. Do you have proof? Yes. Maya slid the encrypted drive across the table. And more coming. Amira's mouth curved, not into a smile, but the hint of blood in the water. Then this story won't end the way they planned. That afternoon, the smear campaign doubled. Anonymous sources emerged like mushrooms after rain. Photos from years-old events were spun as evidence of instability. Stock footage of her. Walking out of Easton's boardroom looped on. Financial news networks, the same anchors who ignored. Her startup now dissected her tone, posture, and smile like a criminal file. She looks angry, one panelist said. She looks threatened, another countered. She looks like a liability. Maya muted the TV. Priya whispered, This is how they erase people. No, Maya said. This is how they try. Janelle looked up from her phone. We've got 12 companies in our network ready to go public with statements backing you. No scripts, just truth. Then let them speak, Maya replied. By nightfall, hashtags shifted. Not completely but enough, not your narrative. Black founders speak. Power without permission. Small, real accounts drowned out the bot storm. Testimonials rolled in. Founders, partners, former employees. Not polished, raw, honest. She's the only one who treated us like equals. She's the reason we built anything at all. This isn't a scandal. This is a takedown. In Easton's tower, the narrative was supposed to choke her. Instead, it cracked. Maya stood at the window, the city burning with light below. She wasn't smiling. She didn't need to. She wasn't winning yet, but she wasn't crawling either. Janelle joined her quietly. You think they'll stop? They never stop, Maya said. But now they know I don't either. Thunder rumbled somewhere far away. Easton Capital had made their move. She'd just answered it. The folder sat in the center of the table like an unexploded bomb. No one touched it at first. No one breathed too loud. In the corner of the room, the server hummed softly, a mechanical pulse against the tension. Maya finally opened the lid. Inside, printed emails, contract drafts, board transcripts. Not leaks, evidence. Every page felt heavier than paper should. Janelle read the first line and muttered, Holy hell. The memo was blunt. Maintain the PR illusion of inclusive investment. No capital commitment required. Use selected minority founders for optics, tax relief, and legislative leverage. Malik let out a low whistle. They wrote this like they never thought anyone outside their little kingdom would see it. Priya scrolled through the mirrored drive on her laptop. There's more. Kickback trails. Lobbying bribes. A slush fund hidden under community partnerships. This isn't just racism. This is felony territory. Maya didn't flinch. She'd expected rot. She hadn't expected this much blood in the water. Chain of custody? She asked. Priya held up a small encrypted tag. Secured. All timestamps intact. We've mirrored everything. Janelle leaned forward. If this goes public, they won't just lose face. They'll lose everything. Maya's voice was calm, almost too calm. Then we don't drop it like a scandal. We build it like a case. The legal team arrived that night. Not the polished white shoe firms Easton controlled. These were quiet operators. 2 civil rights lawyers, 1 ex-prosecutor, 1 data forensic expert. They didn't waste time on handshakes. The lead attorney, Alicia Grant, scanned the pages with clinical precision. This isn't just discrimination. This is racketeering dressed as investment strategy. Malik crossed his arms. So what happens when we hand this to the authorities? Alicia didn't look up. They bury it. Or worse, Easton finds out first. Maya met her gaze. Then we don't hand it. We build it, Alicia nodded slowly. We prepare like they'll fight dirty. Because they will. The next 2 weeks blurred into a surgical operation. Every document cataloged. Every file mirrored. Every email mapped to a timeline. Priya handled encryption. Malik traced corporate shell accounts. Janelle coordinated safe communications between allied companies. This wasn't a startup anymore. It was a war room. In the background, Maya's voice anchored everything. Cold, focused, precise. She barely slept. Her anger had been replaced by something far more dangerous. Clarity. Late one night, Priya looked up from the terminal. You ever think about just walking away? Maya didn't pause. No, you could build somewhere else. Different investors. Different country. Maya turned to her. That's what they want. To scare us out of the table so they can keep it to themselves. Priya's throat tightened. You really think we can win? Maya's stare didn't waver. I don't need to win. I need to make them bleed. The silence after that wasn't about fear. It was about alignment. The turning point came on a Sunday at 3 a.m. Alicia called an emergency meeting. She slammed a folder on the table. This is their Achilles heel, she said. A direct line between Easton's offshore account and 2 sitting lobbyists. Illegal funding. They've been paying to kill regulation. Malik swore under his breath. Janelle exhaled like a punch to the ribs. If this gets out... They don't recover, Alicia finished. Not reputationally. Not financially. Maya closed her eyes for a second. The room felt like loaded air. The weight of every door slammed in her face, every sweetheart laced with condescension, every laugh in that boardroom. It all pressed down like steel. She opened her eyes again. Then we take it public. Alicia shook her head. Not yet. If you leak now, they'll claim fabrication. We go legal, structured, bulletproof, and when it hits, it won't be noise. It'll be a detonation. Maya nodded once. Then build the detonation, outside. Dawn crept over the city, indifferent to war. Inside, the whistleblower files sat locked in 3 encrypted vaults, and for the first time, Easton Capital's tower didn't look untouchable. It looked hollow. They had built their empire on the belief that no one like Maya Brooks would ever hold the match. They were wrong. The boardroom smelled like polished wood and power. Sleek black leather chairs circled a table that once denied Amara a seat. Cameras from financial news outlets lined the back wall. Investors whispered, sensing a spectacle. Amara entered in a charcoal suit, head held high. Her heels struck the marble like drumbeats. Every step was a reply to every time they'd called her a diversity hire. Across the table sat Richard and the core investors who had once laughed at her pitch deck. Today they were cornered animals pretending to still own the cage. Richard leaned back, lips curling. Well, he said, the prodigal CEO returns. Amara didn't sit. This is not a reunion. It's a reckoning, murmurs. One of the older men coughed. Cameras clicked. The legal team behind her slid files onto the table. Thick, precise, merciless. You've made accusations, Richard said smoothly. Hostile takeover, fraud, discrimination. You think the market cares about your feelings? Amara stared straight into his eyes. No, but it cares about numbers. And I have every one of yours. She opened the folder. Graphs, emails, bank transfers, whistleblower testimonies. The same people who silenced her had unknowingly built their own noose. You laundered through shell firms, cooked quarterly earnings, buried HR complaints. And when I spoke up, you pushed me out, she said. Her voice didn't rise. It sliced. One investor slammed his palm. You can't. I can, she cut in. Because I'm not whispering anymore. Her legal counsel connected a laptop to the projector. The wall lit up with a timeline of fraud, starting from the year Richard mocked her accent during her first investor call. A journalist gasped. Someone in the back started recording. Richard shifted in his seat, mask cracking. This is baseless. Then why, she said, did your offshore accounts receive $14.2 million the same quarter we fired 300 black employees and declared budget crisis? Silence. Then the sound of a camera shutter. Amara stepped closer to the table, every word a hammer. You thought power was permanent because people like me were meant to stay silent. But this time the silence is yours. One of the women investors whispered. She has it all. She does, said another. The general counsel of the firm, who had once avoided her in the halls, now cleared his throat and spoke softly. Richard, we need to talk. Privately, Richard hissed. Sit down. But the tide was shifting. Amara placed her hand on the table, steady and firm. This isn't just legal. It's public. By the end of today, every major outlet will know exactly what you did, and by tomorrow morning the SEC will have everything. One board member rose, then another. Within minutes, 5 investors were standing behind her side of the table, the same table that once voted against her. Richard's knuckles went white. You'll regret this, she tilted her head slightly. No, you will. The lawyer tapped the microphone on the desk. Effective immediately, this meeting is on record. Amara walked to the head of the table. Richard's seat. She didn't ask. She sat. The cameras flashed. A reporter whispered, historic. Her heart was pounding, but her face didn't show it. In that room, under the glass ceiling she'd once bled against, Amara wasn't asking for justice. She was taking it. Outside the glass walls, employees were already gathering, watching the live stream. A chant started to rise in the lobby. Her assistant entered quietly and placed her phone beside her. A notification blinked. SEC alert received. Investigation initiated. Richard exhaled sharply. His empire was cracking in real time. Amara looked at him one last time. Welcome, she said coldly, to accountability. The trading floor was chaos. Screens blinked red across every wall. Reporters crowded the building entrance. By 9 a.m., the company's stock had fallen 17%. By 10 a.m., the plunge was 25%. Amara stood behind the glass of her corner office, watching it happen. Below her, hundreds of employees streamed through the lobby, some angry, some confused, some crying. The empire that had once treated her like an outsider was burning from its own rot. Richard stormed into the office without knocking. His tie was loose, hair slicked with sweat. You did this, he spat. She didn't flinch. No, Richard, you did this. I just turned the lights on. You think the market gives a damn about your moral crusade? His voice cracked. This company was stable until you started waving your little justice flag. Amara stepped closer. Stable? You built it on stolen labor, discrimination, and fraud. Stability built on a lie isn't stability. It's a countdown, his fists clenched. I'll bury you. You already buried yourself, she said. I'm just handing the shovel to the world. The door opened again. 2 federal agents in suits walked in, badges flashing. Behind them, 3 journalists holding microphones escorted by security. Richard Hale, the taller agent said, you're under investigation for securities fraud, discrimination, and obstruction. We have a warrant. For the first time since she'd met him, Richard froze. His face drained. This is a mistake. No, Amara whispered, stepping aside so they could cuff him. This is justice. As they read him his rights, the cameras clicked. He glanced at her, not with power, not with dominance, one but raw, naked fear. The room that once belonged entirely to him now felt like hers. He tried to lunge forward, but the agents tightened their grip. You'll regret this, he shouted. She looked at him calmly. I already did. For years. But not anymore. They dragged him out. The hallway echoed with the sound of press questions. Richard, did you falsify earnings? Richard, did you target minority employees? Richard, why did you silence Amara Coleman? She stood at the window as he disappeared into the crowd. Down on the street, employees had gathered. Some of them cheered. Others just stared in stunned silence. Her assistant entered quietly. The board's emergency session is in 30 minutes. They want you to lead. She didn't smile. The weight in her chest was too heavy for that. Prepare the statement, she said flatly. Public? Global. He nodded and left. She turned back to the window. Rain had started to fall, streaking the glass like ink bleeding through paper. She pressed her palm against the cold pane. Power had shifted, but victory didn't feel like triumph. It felt like aftermath. Her phone buzzed. News alert. Richard Hale arrested, SEC investigation confirmed. The world would call her a hero. But she knew the truth. She had fought alone, bled alone, endured years of being dismissed and laughed at. Justice didn't erase the scars. It only made them visible. She walked toward the boardroom. Inside, the remaining executives stood up when she entered. The same people who once ignored her now waited for her to speak. She placed both hands on the table. We rebuild from zero, she said, and we do it without the poison. No one argued. The cameras outside captured a single image through the frosted glass. Amara standing at the head of the table, rain falling behind her like a curtain, power reclaimed. But beneath that steel exterior, a truth pulsed through her chest. This wasn't a victory march. It was the first quiet breath after a long war. The company had collapsed. Richard was in handcuffs, and the woman they once laughed at was the one standing. The boardroom was quieter than it had ever been. The glass walls that once amplified whispers of doubt now reflected a room stripped bare of its illusions. Overnight, 5 directors had resigned. 2 had been subpoenaed. The company's logo, still glowing on the wall, felt like a ghost clinging to a burning house. Amara stood at the head of the table, rain dripping from her coat. She hadn't slept. The storm outside hadn't stopped, and neither had the storm inside. She stared at the empty chairs, the same chairs that months ago had voted her out with mocking smiles. Now they were vacant. Her assistant slid a folder toward her. Media is outside. All major outlets. They're calling it the fall of Hale Industries. She didn't touch the folder. Good. Investors want a statement about leadership transition, he added. They'll get one, she said, but not the one they expect. A legal advisor entered, visibly exhausted. Amara, the SEC wants to meet this afternoon. Richard's lawyers are scrambling. He's already been charged with multiple counts. There's talk of a plea deal. She exhaled slowly. The air tasted metallic like rain on concrete. He won't get to rewrite the story this time. The board members who remained trickled in one by one, avoiding her eyes. Some murmured apologies under their breath. Too little, too late. She didn't answer them. She placed a single document on the table, a proposal for dissolution and restructuring. This company was built to exploit, she said, her voice steady but cold. If we rebuild, it won't be under his name or his shadow. One of the senior members cleared his throat. You're proposing a full reset, Amara. That means walking away from billions. It means walking away from rot, she replied. Silence spread like wildfire. This isn't revenge, she continued. This is survival. For every black woman they ignored, every employee they discarded, every lie they printed in our reports, we build something new or we let it die with him. A younger board member leaned forward. Then we follow you. Her hands tightened on the edges of the document. That was what she'd fought for. Not applause, not control, but the right to exist without asking permission. She signed the first line. Pens clicked across the room as the others followed. In 30 minutes, the corporation Richard had built was legally dissolving itself. Her assistant whispered, "They're ready for you downstairs." Outside, the lobby was flooded with cameras, employees, and press. She walked through them in silence. The rain had stopped, but the street still shone like glass. Microphones thrust toward her face. Amara, how does it feel to take down a billionaire? Do you plan to rebuild under your own name? Is this the end of Hale Industries? She stopped at the podium. The lenses flashed. The world waited. This is not about a billionaire, she said slowly, each word a stone. This is about a system that believed people like me belonged in the corner, not at the table. Today that system broke itself, murmurs. A few nods. A lot of silence. I'm not here to be their hero, she added. I'm here to make sure no one else has to bleed to be heard. She stepped down from the podium before the questions began. No slogans. No slogans needed. Back in her office, she watched as workers removed the Hale Industries logo from the wall. Piece by piece, the name disappeared. In its place, a blank surface and clean, waiting. She walked to the window. The city stretched out beneath her like a promise. Power had changed hands, but the cost was carved into her bones. She whispered to herself, not for the cameras, not for anyone else, and never again. The rain returned, soft this time, like a curtain closing on a war, and for the first time in years, Amara let her shoulders drop. The battle was over. The reckoning was done, and from the ashes of a corrupt empire, something untainted was waiting to rise. The city moved on faster than anyone expected. News anchors shifted from outrage to analysis. Investors whispered in back rooms about mergers, and hashtags burned hot for a week before fading into the noise. But Amara didn't fade. She remained in the empty shell of what used to be Hale Industries, not because she loved it, but because she needed to see what remained after power falls apart. The marble lobby echoed with every step she took. No security guards, no lobby screens, just quiet. Her assistant joined her with a cardboard box in his hands. "Everything you asked for," he said. Inside were old investor minutes, Richard's signed memos, and the first business plan she'd ever submitted, the one they laughed at. She lifted the fragile, dog-eared paper. Her handwriting stared back at her like a wound that had finally stopped bleeding. "You could walk away now," he said softly. She didn't answer. Walking away was never the point. Upstairs, she unlocked Richard's old office. It smelled of stale cigars and arrogance. The view was still the same, a perfect skyline he believed belonged to him. She sat in his chair, not to claim it, but to end it. She pulled out a pen and signed the last set of papers, the official dissolution filings. A legacy erased in ink. The door opened. It was Malik, one of the few employees who had defended her when the board turned on her. He leaned against the frame. "Never thought I'd see the day," he said quietly. She nodded once. "Neither did they." "They're already talking about the next thing," Malik said. "New firms, new faces, everyone trying to claim the rubble. That's how systems survive," she replied. "They don't vanish. They adapt. So do we." He stepped closer. "You planning to build again?" She met his eyes. Not like them. Not for them. The quiet between them wasn't heavy. It was clean. Downstairs, as the final legal documents transferred to federal custody, employees who had been silenced finally began speaking to journalists. Stories came out in waves, testimonies, emails, buried complaints. The truth moved faster than any press release. By noon, Hale Industries was a headline, not a building. Amara walked out to the street with only one box under her arm. No entourage, no podium, just air that finally tasted like it belonged to her. A reporter rushed forward. "Ms. Coleman!" "What's next for you?" She paused, looked at the skyline. "Freedom," she said, and kept walking. No fanfare followed, just the sound of her heels striking the pavement. Steady, final, alive. 6 months later, the world had already replaced Hale Industries with new villains and new headlines. But in a restored warehouse on the city's east side, a place no investor had ever set foot in, a different story was quietly being built. Amara stood on a scaffold, sleeves rolled up, paint on her hands. The walls around her weren't lined with investor charts or board votes. They were covered with plans for a cooperative, a business owned by the people who work there. No shareholders, no Richard, no glass ceilings. Malik climbed the ladder beside her, holding a roll of blueprints. "This is a hell of a long way from Wall Street," he said. "That's the point," she replied. He unrolled the plans on a wooden table. "You sure about this model?" "No CEO throne. No board of old men pretending to be gods." She smiled faintly. "I don't want a throne. I want a floor that doesn't crack when someone like me stands on it." Below them, a group of young engineers and former employees were assembling workstations. Some were immigrants, some women who'd been sidelined, some who'd simply been ignored for too long. The hum of drills and laughter replaced the sterile silence of the old tower. A volunteer walked over, handing her a folded newspaper. The front page headline, "Richard Hale sentenced to 15 years, fallen titan." She read the first line once, then folded the paper without a word. The story that began with their laughter had ended with the sound of a gavel. Malik watched her. "Does it feel like victory?" She shook her head slowly. "It feels like breathing." A young woman approached her, one of the interns who had testified during the hearings. Ms. Coleman, we finished the power grid layout. Good, Amara said. But don't call me Ms. Coleman anymore. Call me Amara. We build this together. The intern nodded, smiling nervously, then returned to the work crew. Through the high windows, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in weeks. Light spilled across the floor, catching the steel beams and fresh paint. This wasn't Empire. This was Foundation. Amara walked to the center of the room where the old Hale logo used to hang in every office. On this wall, there was only white space, blank, waiting. She picked up a brush and painted a single line across it, a line meant to be finished by many hands. No speeches, no cameras, just a quiet act of reclamation. Malik leaned against a column. You know, he said, they'll still talk about Richard. They'll keep dissecting how he fell. Let them, she answered. I'm not here to be the end of his story. I'm here to start one he could never write. Outside, traffic moved like it always had. But inside this warehouse, something irreversible had shifted. Power was no longer locked in towers. It was spreading. Amara wiped paint from her fingers and looked around the room. She didn't feel like a queen. She felt like a builder. The quiet crown wasn't on her head. It was in her hands.